Have you ever wondered why rejection hurts so much? I'm not just talking about a little sting of disappointment. I mean that deep, gut-wrenching ache that can make you question everything. In 2011, a study from the University of Michigan uncovered something startling. When you experience rejection, your brain lights up in the exact same areas as it does when you feel physical pain. That's why a simple no, or even just being ignored, can feel like a punch to the stomach. But here's the part almost nobody tells you, that pain isn't just an obstacle to overcome. It's a tool. If you learn how to understand it, rejection can become one of the most powerful allies you have for building emotional resilience, independence, and true authenticity. Think about it. Have you ever felt that tightness in your chest after being ignored by someone important to you? Or that hollow, sinking feeling when a rejection shatters a hope that felt so real just moments before? That reaction isn't a sign of weakness. It's pure biology. Your nervous system was molded over thousands of years of evolution. For our ancestors living in small tribes, being cast out from the group was a death sentence. It meant losing access to food, shelter, and protection. Today, the stakes are rarely that high. But your brain hasn't gotten the memo. It still reacts as if your very survival is on the line. Let's bring this into a modern context. You send a text message to someone you care about. You see those two little check marks that mean it's been delivered and read. And then, nothing. Silence. That silence quickly morphs into self-doubt. The doubt spirals into anxiety. And the anxiety solidifies into a feeling of shame. You start wondering what you did wrong. But here's the crucial insight. The pain isn't caused by the silence itself. It's caused by what that silence activates deep inside you. Most of the time, the rejection isn't really about the other person at all. It's a spotlight that points inward toward old wounds, unexamined beliefs, and insecurities you might not even know you're carrying. That's why such a seemingly small event can trigger such a massive emotional tidal wave. Rejection acts like a mirror, and no matter how uncomfortable it is to look at your reflection, that mirror isn't showing you the other person. It's showing you yourself. Let me give you a classic example. You apply for your dream job. You nail the first interview, then the second. They praise your experience and your skills. You feel a surge of confidence. And then you get the emails. Thank you for your interest, but we've decided to move forward with another candidate. Officially, the reason is vague. We chose another profile. But in your mind, the rejection starts to grow tentacles. It whispers, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I said the wrong thing in the interview. Maybe I should have been more confident or more technical. What actually happened is that an external event, the rejection, activated an internal belief that was already there, lying dormant. It was just waiting for the right trigger. Psychologists have a term for this: personal meaning. It's the story we tell ourselves about what the rejection means. Research published in the prestigious Journal of Personality and Social Psychology confirms this. It shows that people who interpret rejection as a fundamental judgment of their worth and identity experience far more pain and take significantly longer to recover. So, let's be clear. The rejection itself doesn't break you. What you believe it says about you is what does the damage. And this brings us to the most important reframe you will ever learn about rejection. Every single time it hurts deeply. It's not an accusation. It's a map. It's a precise, targeted signal showing you exactly where something inside you still needs healing, attention, and compassion. That's where real, lasting change begins. So, how do we start using this map? The first step is to simply acknowledge the pain without judgment. Instead of saying, "I shouldn't feel this way," try saying, "Okay, this hurts. Where do I feel it in my body? Is it a knot in your stomach? A tightness in your throat?" By locating the physical sensation, you anchor the experience in the present moment, which stops your mind from spiraling into catastrophic future scenarios or painful past memories. This is a mindfulness technique, and it's incredibly powerful. You're not trying to fix the feeling or push it away. You're just observing it. You're separating the raw sensation of pain from the story your mind is desperately trying to build around it. Once you've acknowledged the feeling, the next step is to get curious. Ask yourself a simple but profound question. What is this rejection making me believe about myself right now? Is it making you believe you're unlovable, not smart enough, unworthy of success? Write these beliefs down. Seeing them on paper gives you distance and objectivity. You start to see them not as absolute truths, but as thoughts. And thoughts can be questioned. This is the core of cognitive behavioral therapy. You challenge the automatic negative thoughts that rejection triggers. For example, if the thought is, "I'll never find a good job," you can counter it with evidence. Is that really true? I got 2 interviews for this competitive role. That proves I have valuable skills. This one rejection is just one data point, not my entire story. Think of a time you learned a new skill, like riding a bike or playing an instrument. How many times did you fall? How many wrong notes did you play? Each mistake wasn't a sign that you were a failure. It was feedback. It was information telling you to adjust your balance, change your finger position, or try again. Rejection is the exact same thing in the social and professional worlds. It's feedback. Maybe your resume needs tweaking. Maybe your interview approach could be improved. Or maybe, and this is often the case, it had absolutely nothing to do with you. The company might have had an internal candidate all along, or their budget got cut. You'll never know the full story. By treating rejection as feedback, instead of a verdict on your worth, you stay in a state of learning and growth, rather than a state of shame and paralysis. This shift in perspective is the foundation of what psychologist Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset. People with a growth mindset believe their abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. They see challenges and setbacks not as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities to learn. When they face rejection, they don't see it as a reflection of their fixed, unchangeable identity. They see it as a prompt to get better. This isn't just a nice idea. It's backed by decades of research. A growth mindset is directly linked to greater resilience, higher achievement, and better mental health. Now, let's talk about the ultimate goal, emotional independence. This is the state where your sense of self-worth is not dependent on external validation. It's not about never feeling the sting of rejection. Again, that's impossible. You're human. It's about that sting no longer having the power to destabilize you. It becomes a brief, passing sensation, not a week-long emotional crisis. You achieve this by building your self-worth from the inside out. You do this by keeping the promises you make to yourself, by pursuing hobbies and interests that you genuinely love, not just ones that you think will impress others, by spending time with people who see and appreciate you for who you are. Every time you act in alignment with your own values, you are casting a vote for yourself. You're reinforcing the message that your worth is inherent and not up for negotiation. Let's go back to that feeling of being ignored. The next time it happens, I want you to try an experiment. Feel the initial pain, acknowledge it, then gently shift your focus. Instead of obsessing over why they didn't reply, ask yourself, what do I need right now? Maybe you need to listen to your favorite song. Maybe you need to go for a walk in nature. Maybe you need to call a friend who always makes you laugh. By turning your attention to your own needs, you take your power back. You become the source of your own comfort and validation. You are actively healing the very wound that the rejection triggered. This journey is not about becoming invincible or emotionless. It's about becoming whole. It's about understanding that your reaction to rejection is a deeply human experience, rooted in your biology. But you are not a slave to that biology. You have the power to reframe the narrative. You can transform rejection from a weapon that hurts you into a compass that guides you. It guides you back to the parts of yourself that need your love and attention the most. It points the way toward greater self-awareness, stronger resilience, and a sense of self that is so solid, so authentic, that no can ever truly break it. The pain is real, but its meaning is up to you. Choose to see it not as a judgment, but as a guide. From the moment we're born, we learn a dangerous equation. Approval equals safety, a compliment for a good drawing, a high grade on a test, a smile of acceptance from a parent. These small moments teach us that fitting in, being liked, and getting that nod of approval is how we stay secure in the world. But over time, this need for approval stops being a conscious choice. It becomes automatic, an invisible force shaping our lives. You start making decisions not based on what you truly want, but on what will keep you accepted by the group. You change how you dress to match the latest trends, even if you don't like them. You choose a career path because it's what your family expects, not what your heart desires. You stay silent in meetings, swallowing your own brilliant ideas to avoid conflict or disagreement. And slowly, bit by bit, something essential erodes. Your authenticity. You lose touch with the real you. Imagine someone in a relationship who stops expressing their feelings because they're afraid of being seen as too much or too needy. They compromise on their boundaries. They adapt to their partner's every whim. They shrink themselves down, hoping that by becoming smaller, they'll become more lovable. But what happens? Eventually, they wake up and realize they're reliving in a situation that no longer reflects who they are. They feel trapped, resentful, and utterly alone. And here's the cruel irony. Despite all that effort to be liked, to be accepted, they're often rejected anyway. Why? Because chasing approval at any cost dissolves your personal identity. You become a chameleon, a reflection of what you think others want to see. And people can sense that. They feel that loss of center, that lack of a solid core, even if they can't quite put it into words. A person without a self is hard to connect with, hard to trust, and ultimately hard to truly love. The science backs this up. A study from the University of Houston found a direct link between this kind of people-pleasing behavior and mental health struggles. People who constantly avoid conflict and seek approval show significantly higher levels of anxiety and depression. It's a heavy burden to carry, constantly scanning every room, every conversation, for signs of disapproval. The price of being liked by everyone is often yourself. You trade your own happiness for a fleeting moment of external validation. But there is a way out, and it all begins with one powerful step: awareness. When you start noticing how many of your daily decisions are made just to fit in, rather than because they align with who you are, you begin to reclaim your freedom. Think about it. That outfit you chose this morning, was it for you or for them? The opinion you shared at lunch, was it your real opinion, or the one that would get the most nods? The favor you agreed to do, even though you were exhausted, was it from a place of genuine generosity, or a fear of saying no? Each time you notice this pattern, you're not meant to judge yourself. You're simply shining a light on the invisible strings that have been pulling you. This awareness is the first crack in the prison of a truth-seeking. It's the moment you realize you have a choice. Picture a room full of important, influential people. Two individuals stand out. One is working the room hard. They're speaking loudly, laughing at every joke, and making sure to agree with every powerful person there. They're trying so desperately to impress everyone, to win their favor. Now, look at the other person. They are quiet, grounded, and calm. They're not chasing anyone. They're simply present, occupying their space with a sense of ease. And somehow, this second person carries more weight, more gravity. What they have is emotional self-sufficiency. This isn't coldness or detachment. It's not about building walls around your heart. It's the absence of neediness. It's the profound inner knowing that your worth is not up for debate. Emotionally self-sufficient people make decisions based on their internal values, not on external validation. They don't adapt themselves to fit the room. They occupy the room as they are. Their energy says, "This is me. I am enough." Let's bring this into a practical example. Imagine a group discussion at work about a new project. One person, driven by the need for approval, stays silent, even though they see a major flaw in the plan. Or worse, they soften their view, saying something like, "Well, I see your point. But maybe we could also consider they're terrified of causing friction." But another person in that same room, the one with internal authority, speaks up. They say, clearly and calmly, "I have a concern about this approach, and here's why. This isn't stubbornness or arrogance. It's the expression of an internal compass. This person's sense of self isn't threatened by potential disagreement. They are anchored in their own perception and values. And interestingly, research from Harvard Business School shows that people who display this kind of calm confidence, even if they speak fewer words, are perceived as more competent, more trustworthy, and more reliable. Why? Not because they demand attention, but because their quiet confidence shows they don't need it. When you stop trying to prove yourself, when you release that desperate need to be liked, something magical shifts. You begin to radiate a sense of stability. It's a quiet power that draws people in, not because you're trying to attract them, but because you are a source of calm in a chaotic world. People are naturally drawn to those who are centered and at peace with themselves. This stability doesn't just attract better relationships. It attracts better opportunities, clearer thinking, and a deeper sense of purpose. But this kind of magnetic presence can only exist when you stop running from the parts of yourself you've been trying to hide. The too sensitive part, the too loud part, the weird part, all the pieces of your personality that you were told were unacceptable, the parts you learned to suppress in your quest for approval. True emotional self-sufficiency is born from embracing your whole self, shadows and all. It's about looking in the mirror and finally saying, I am all of these things. And that is not just okay, it is my strength. The journey from seeking approval to cultivating emotional self-sufficiency isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming more of the person you already are. It's about peeling back the layers of social conditioning to find the solid, unshakable core within. And once you find it, you'll realize you never needed anyone else's permission to be you. Thank you so much for watching. There's a kind of rejection that hurts more than any no you could ever hear from someone else. It's the rejection you inflict upon yourself just to be accepted by others. This is a subtle betrayal, a silent compromise that chips away at who you are. The famous psychologist Carl Jung had a name for the parts of ourselves we hide away: the shadow. Your shadow contains everything you've suppressed to be liked or to fit in your anger, your envy, your fear, your selfishness, and even your vulnerability. The more you push these parts of yourself into the dark, the more they control you from behind the scenes. Think about it this way. Imagine someone who was taught as a child that anger is a bad, unacceptable emotion. They learn to lock it away, to pretend it doesn't exist. But that anger doesn't just disappear. As an adult, this person might find themselves either exploding over something small and insignificant, or completely freezing up during a conflict, unable to stand up for themselves. The problem was never the anger itself. The problem was that they never learned how to understand it, how to relate to it in a healthy way. This isn't just a psychological theory. The American Psychological Association has shown a clear link between suppressing our emotions and experiencing increased anxiety, physical health problems, and even poor decision-making. What you try to avoid doesn't go away. It just finds quieter, more destructive ways to sabotage you. So, what's the solution? It's not about letting your shadow run wild. It's about integration. Facing your shadow doesn't make you weak, it makes you whole. Integration means you consciously acknowledge these hidden parts of yourself. You don't have to act on your envy or your anger, but you do have to understand where they come from. By bringing them into the light, you take away their power to control you from the dark. When you start to integrate your shadow, something remarkable happens. Your behavior becomes more stable and predictable. Your relationships become clearer and more honest because you're no longer hiding parts of yourself. Your presence becomes consistent and grounded, and this fundamental shift directly changes how rejection affects you. It loses its sting because you're no longer terrified of someone seeing a part of you that you yourself have rejected. Now, let's talk about a quiet irony in human connection. The more you chase approval, the more people tend to pull away. Excessive neediness, even when it comes from a place of good intentions, creates an imbalance. It feels like pressure to the other person. Studies published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology have found that people who show high emotional dependency are often perceived as less attractive and less reliable. It's not because they care too much, but because their caring comes from a place of need, not from a place of genuine, free-flowing connection. This brings us to the powerful concept of non-attachment. Non-attachment is widely misunderstood. People often think it means being cold, distant, or indifferent, but that's not it at all. True non-attachment is a sign of emotional maturity. It means you choose to connect with others, but you don't need their validation to feel whole or complete. Your sense of self-worth is internal. It doesn't depend on external approval. Let me give you an example. Picture two candidates interviewing for the same job. The first one is visibly nervous, trying desperately to say all the right things, to be the person they think the interviewer wants them to be. The second candidate is calm. They are honest about their strengths and are not afraid to admit their limitations. They are there to see if the job is a good fit for them, just as much as the company is seeing if they are a good fit for the job. Even before the interview is over, the second person has already won in a way. They project autonomy and self-possession. Their value isn't on the line. Research from the University of Toronto confirms this. People with high emotional autonomy, that is, people who are less dependent on others for their sense of well-being, report higher satisfaction in their relationships and a greater sense of overall happiness. Non-attachment doesn't weaken your bonds with others. It purifies them. It allows for connections that are based on choice and mutual respect, not on need and obligation. And from this place of known attachment, authenticity emerges naturally. Authenticity isn't about oversharing every thought and feeling you have. It's about alignment. It's when what you think, what you feel, and what you do are all in harmony. There's no gap between your inner world and your outer expression. Research from Harvard has shown that authentic leaders are far more influential, not because they are perfect, but because their authenticity creates deep attention and trust. People can sense the truth behind their words. Now, let's return to where we started, the most painful rejection of all. This is the rejection that happens when you betray yourself in the hope of being accepted by someone else. It happens in small ways. The little compromises on your values, the unspoken truths you swallow, the the roles you play that just don't fit who you really are. Over time, these small betrayals create a profound sense of emptiness. The paradox here is brutal. The more you try to avoid external rejection, the more you end up rejecting yourself. And when you live in a state of self-rejection, every no from the outside world hits twice as hard. It doesn't just feel like a rejection of your request. It feels like a rejection of your entire being. But you can break this cycle. It starts with a single, powerful decision: to stop trying to force yourself into shapes that aren't yours. Living by your own criteria, your own values, isn't an act of rebellion. It's an act of coherence. It's about aligning your life with your true self. When you no longer need external validation to feel whole, rejection loses its power over you. It stops being a devastating verdict on your worth and becomes what it truly is: a filter. It's just information. A no simply means that a particular person or opportunity wasn't aligned with you, and that's okay. Because that's the moment you stop adapting yourself to be chosen, and you start being chosen by the people and experiences that genuinely belong in your life. Thank you for watching. If you're still here, still watching my videos, I just want to say something simple. Thank you. In this world of endless noise and constant distractions, the fact that you choose to spend your time here with me means more than you can possibly imagine. It means you're one of those rare people who wants to go deeper, who wants to question things, and who looks for answers inside yourself, not just on the surface. I am honestly so happy that there are people like you who share these interests, these questions, and this search for meaning. So, if you feel like this space resonates with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe share this video with someone you know who might need it. Your support helps this content reach more people who are also quietly searching. Thank you for being here, really.